Alright, good morning everyone. It's time for another streaming morning stream. Today I'm going to take a little break from the steering system for ships, AI ships, partly because I have an idea for what I'm going to be doing next, but I haven't really sat down and spent any time with it, and after the last couple streams, I do actually want to spend like a minute or two outside of the stream working on that. And to confirm, I really also think it's trying to work on something very heavy thinking-wise in the morning, when I'm operating a lot on muscle memory, honestly. So right now, I'm going to be working on the port economy today. So, good morning. So I'm going to be working on the idea that our ports are going to be generating different types of goods. It's going to be very fundamental goods for now. Why is this really stretched like this? What? This window's really off, I think. Maybe it's not. Maybe just everything is really flat. Okay. So, we're going to be working on the idea of these complicated ports. Very complex things right now. Want to actually do other stuff. So, all right. So what we have for that, we have our world script. We have our ports. So we're just going to go ahead and start to think about this stuff. Start to think about right now, when we create a new port, we can imagine, we have right now this idea of it creating just a random number of items. So we can see we actually have a create item, and we're just giving it literally a random range from 0 to hold size. This is simpler than we actually want. So what we're going to be looking at here is we're going to start to think about what it means to make we can start to think about the idea of port activity might be a good way to think about this. So if we imagine we have wealth, supply, construction, weapons, I'm going to keep this pretty simple and think that we can still name kind of our town's, goods, but we could maybe, thinking maybe we have 4 levels for each of these things. And then that would be an easy way to imagine. Okay. So go to definition. We have item type. have a value and we have a max. So we do have our storage. Our storage is going to be the item and the type of the item. But we are also going to have our public item type. Port activity. Buildings. So we could have something like that. And I mean, one of the things we obviously want is our buildings are also, I could think about public building. Public class building. So we want to carry a bunch of things, so we're going to have a public enum building type. So this simply is just a list of names that we can then use later. So we're going to have null. We'll go ahead and do this wealth supply construction weapon. So merchant, maybe. Good producer. I'll supply construction materials and blacksmith, and then pub. Right. Everyone wants a pub. So we just basically write a list of these things, and then we now can create very simple variable type. So when we make a building that is going to have a building type, I think we will have an int of size, and then a public. So this is something I've been thinking about. Is, well, let's just give it a string right now. So, but I think an object, C# unity object name, it might. Name field from mono behavior. Does this include object name? All right. If I make a building array, can I say buildings 0.name? No. Okay. So I do need a name. Do need a size. Can I say type? Yes, it will let me do that. Okay. So now the next kind of fun thing to think about is actually building our port. We could also imagine maybe we actually need more things. Tower. Maybe we want instead of pub, I'm going to say inn. Tower. Fort. Mansion? Okay. So that's starting to fill out. We can imagine the different things. That our building could potentially be. We'll probably want, an ocean-related thing. Let's see. What else do we want to do? So we have the idea of port activity. Then what we're actually going to need is all of our buildings are potentially going to have activity going on inside them. So maybe what we actually need is our buildings might actually need their own series of functions. So public void operate, and if they're operating, do they produce So we're going to say size is going to be 1 through 3. And does the island itself have resources? Probably. That's a good way we could imagine and think about this. Right, so our island itself will have resources. Public resource. Public I think I do want to call it resource. No, come on. So now we need yet another thing. Let's call resource. And this is going to be a class. And it is also going to have a resource type. So we will have null, wood, metal, food, public resource type, and public int quality. Let's say quality is just 1 or 2, maybe? 1 through 3. Yeah, let's do the 1 through 3 again. So you can see a lot of what I'm just doing is really just kind of writing out lists of things right now. We're going to be doing more later to kind of like wind these things back in together. But really the first thing I'm doing is just like, okay, what is involved in my game? What are the different things that I want to imagine? If I want to give this island a little life, you know, we can think about, you know, the island is this the kind of thing that we want to make up coal, and, you know, like, maybe that's a thing as well. And then this is how quickly you go down those rabbit holes of, okay, how is coal made? How is coal generated? Mined, and, you know, Minecraft has coal, right? Fundamental thing to make fire. So, yep. All right. Get rid of that for now. And how I arrange these things is very much going to determine how my game kind of comes out. Yeah. Like public int amount. So this is another layer that we could think about, which if our port has resources, do those resources replenish themselves? Are we going to choose like some like crazy big number? Like if there's trees, is it possible to get rid of all the trees? But then they regenerate, you know. It's possible to get rid of all the metal or the food, you know. So maybe we have a regen time, and we have a public well, that's probably plenty, right? You can imagine metal is limited, but it will it might be an absurd amount. So okay, and then we're later gonna have to allocate how much it costs to do any of these things. Is a portsmith a thing? Portsmouth. Sailing repair? Well, I think what this does tell me is I'm gonna need docks, you know. Right, so dock, merchant, producer, materials, blacksmith, inn, tower, fort, mansion. Residences, storehouses, residence, Storehouse. I don't think I'm gonna want those, but I'm gonna have them here anyway. So, dock, merchant, producer, materials, blacksmith, inn, tower, fort, mansion. So this is starting to build up, right? So now we have the idea of resources, buildings, storage. Are we going to want our storage to be just in these buildings? How are we going to control this? So, that is a question. Okay. So, I think we are gonna need, I guess the question is, are we gonna have a clockwork update in the wider world, or is this thing gonna update itself? Is my port going to update itself? I always like the kind of clockwork world that's a little bit more, it's a different way to run it. But right now, well, one, I have world generation versus world. I think that's a thing that I need to separate out right now. Port and world are world generation from the actual world, right? Like, so I'm gonna go ahead and go back into my game and think about the idea of script world. And these are my own naming conventions, but I really like these kinds of things, so I have the foundational thing. I always name them script unless they're a little bit more fundamental than that, but the bigger things are called that. And then they have all of their sub-objects, subscripts, so world and world generation. So this, we're going to slowly move all of our stuff over. So we're going to create islands and all of that stuff. And actually, I think we can even simplify this more, right? Like into a class that will just kind of pool game object, go to definition. Oh, I made that already. Okay. World generation. So we will then have a public pool values, islands, public pool values, ports, public pool values, ships. Yep, that looks good. Island values, port values, and ship values. set this up, I'm gonna say island values dot obj copy values dot count and island values dot parent. Does it transform? What is holder? I called it holder. I don't know if that's good, but dot get component script island. Okay. All right. So then that should help us get rid of basically 6 more lines of code. So same thing here. Port values dot obj dot get component script port. Port values dot count and port values dot holder. And then lastly, ship values dot obj dot get component script ship. Ship values dot count and ship values dot holder. So now let's go and clean this up as well. All right. So our island is gonna go there. Our island count is 20. Our island parent is there. Our port is there. Our count is here. Port count maximum is 15 actually. And our port parent is there. Our ship is this thing. We're gonna have 40 ships. And this is our parent. It's gonna hold all those things. So now that I've done that, get rid of this. Let's make sure, actually. Find all references, no result. Find all references. No results. See, now that's starting to look even nicer and more clean. Now we could do something like this if we wanted. I think I like it the other way. All right. So now that we have that, if we go back into Unity, this should clean up a bunch. We're gonna see, oh, island count does not exist. So this is where we need island values dot count. that means we might have another one. Nope. Okay. Yeah. Starting to look better. Look a little more clean. All right. And of course, this is on our environment. Again, might end up changing that. I think for now, I'm going to go ahead and put the world here. And let's go ahead and edit this script. I think this is going to have a timer that is public timer clockwork. And this might update everything. I don't know. I'm like mixed on this idea. It does mean things. It's kind of this. Well, yeah, it's not going to work in certain cases, especially if we have this idea of our ports. You know, we have different like regen times, especially if these are floats. If this is like a decimal number versus like an integer. I'm imagining something like the clockwork being maybe even every like 20 seconds. Okay. I'm at least going to put my reference to the game and my public. I do actually think this is where we want we probably want our actual list of things here. But for now, script world generation. So next up we have the idea of, I think we need to actually generate our port now. And then we want to figure out, do our ports change at all? Do they have some sort of like shift in values? Do they become the other thing. Do I want to call it tribe or nation or alliance? Public. Alliance. So this is going to be a new thing. We're going to have the idea. One of the ideas that I really like, and I've been thinking, you know, originally the first time I built this, that was kind of a big foundational idea, was the idea of different groups that weren't necessarily aware of each other in real time. Like that the transfer of information in this era actually has to occur, with actual transmission of information. So, someone has to relate information. So I'm going to go ahead and get that started as well. Script alliance. Alliances. Sure. Script alliances. And we'll go ahead and put that on here. And we're going to edit that script. We're going to have a class called Alliance. Union League Treaty between countries or organizations. All these things: consortium, combine, syndicate, affiliation, partnership. A league, a collection of people, countries, or groups. Confederacy. States. Yeah, I think I'm going to call this an island state. And it's going to have a public int. It's going to have a public string name. Is that all it's going to have right now? Maybe that's all it's going to have right now. No, it's probably going to need a public int relations. So this can be just a positive negative number, an array of positive negative numbers of all the other island states. So we have a public island state, and that's going to be a states. So now what we actually want here is we probably want public class island. So public island state. And up to date. The funny thing is here, right? Like the thing that's going to be really complicated, that I think is potentially super interesting, but it's probably just going to be really messy, is the idea of how do we actually really have like strong communication, we're probably going to need like different levels of communication between things. And then like how much can a particular island influence the island state's actual standing and feeling about things. So like the island might have its own feelings. So it probably also needs a public and I'm going to call this owner, but it's public int relations. And then we could start to think, can the owners ever change? You know, if this becomes so allied with a particular, so positive with the thing, could it actually have a relation to its own island state? Oh man, that sounds messy. Also sounds really fascinating, but gonna be crazy difficult to communicate to a player. Alright. So I think we can imagine that the first thing that we need to do is we're going to need to create states. And the way a game like Dwarf Fortress does this is I actually think they set a starting state and then they run through things. They kind of like automate a sequence of things that basically evolves this naturally. And so then in theory you get some more, like you actually come into it in the middle of things. I don't think we're there yet. But I think we can. I mean, we're not there yet. But I think we can think about creating a number of states. We need to assign ports to the different states. Probably based on proximity. Could be kind of fun, just like one by one. Like, are we ever gonna have, like, how are we gonna draw the map? Is it gonna be, like, are they gonna be kind of overlapping? Are they gonna be very, like contiguous? And then assign initial relationships. Relationship status. Okay. And again, public void setup. World. Script world. New world. And world equals new world. Okay. And then if we have something like this, we can start to think about our ships having the island state that is their owner. Right? So we have our ship. Like int state. So we'll want to create all our ships after we create all of our states. So, all right. This is something else. Island state. I'm gonna call it island state just so I know. May separate this. Who this ship is allied with. And their own knowledge of the relationships. Like, this is crazy, but you can imagine a ship is translating information, and really what they're trying to do is they go to an island and they update their knowledge based on the information from that island, and then they're carrying that with them. And so if there's a lot of attacks, maybe you see ships end up attacking each other. The one danger here is, right, eventually there might be you're gonna need those like tipping points. But if this hears that it has a bad relationship with another thing, it's going to take it to another port and maybe influence that port's knowledge of things. Maybe it only shares its own feeling about things. Okay. So like I said, we then have our port. Is going to have a public island. Maybe it is just going to be island states. Public int ID. This way we're not duplicating the same thing over and over. If really state yeah, I'm just gonna leave it called island state, and I'm gonna do the same thing with this island state. Okay. So our ship has an island state, our port has an island state, our world has an array of island states. gonna get real messy. So first thing we'll do is have a public int public vector to states count. So states equals a new island state array of random dot range between count dot x count dot y. Now we're gonna need to see we're generating floats, so we actually need to turn that into an int and turn that into an int. So we're gonna make a random number of island states. Each island state is gonna have I'm gonna rename this island subject is gonna have an ID and relations. This is gonna have a name and relations. And I'm just gonna go ahead and make a little, this is a really lazy way. We're gonna have a public string array name state names equals so fell Yiva mole. Pro. I'll lowercase these. Yiva fell tra sol. Okay. For int I is equal to 0, I is less than states dot length I plus plus states I is equal to new island state. And we're going to have this. Public island state. String n and int brevity, complexity, no, strength. So we're gonna say name equals n for int I 0, I is less than int island states count. I plus plus. So, relations equals new int states count, and for that, relations equals random dot range between negative strength and positive strength. Okay. Yep. Relations at I. So now we need to pass this string get random name return random dot range state names random dot range 0 to state names dot length plus one more. So we're just going to put two of these things together. Sultra Felieva Jevaung Fassung. So then we will send it get random name. We will send it our states dot length, and we will send it 5. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and make this a system.serializable. Let's go ahead and make this one as well. Let's go to here, make this one serializable, and this one serializable. Making progress. Okay. Alright. So next up, we can go back to here. We're probably going to have an error or something, although it's not working like it will. Okay. So we have our state name list there. Yeah. Actually, just going to make that private. I don't need that. Well, no, that's fine. So our game script up here on our main camera is instead going to have access to script world. And our world is going to have generation. Our world is also going to have public script alliances. And it's going to have a public void setup, script game, new game, game equals new game, generation equals get component, script generation, alliances equals get component script alliances, and then our world is going to have public void create. That's going to say generation dot create world. Followed by alliances dot create. Is that what we have? Nope. Just gonna have make this public. So public void setup, public void create. We are going to have right now. We're gonna get rid of this. World as the generation and alliances, and it is going to then generation dot setup this, alliances dot setup this, and definition F12. How often are we using this? Shift Alt F12. Okay. So in this case, we need to change this to world. Script world. ship. Yeah, we're gonna have to do all this now, I think. I think we actually need to put all of our stuff over there now. So we have our world right now. Our world is going to have alliances. It's going to have to think about this structure. So does our world have all of this stuff directly, or does it actually have is it like we have a script objects? Maybe we're gonna do that. I don't love that name, but I'm also going to need to take some. I'm going to take a screenshot of this because I'm about to rename this objects. So I use a thing called Gyazo. Which is a really easy way to screenshot. I've been using it since the company I work for introduced me to it. So, okay. So I'm going to rename this to script objects. And then I'm going to need to rename. Oh. But, I mean, I don't love that. I'm still going to do it, though. Objects. Okay. Do not like that at all. It's just not a great name. Maybe it needs to be ship object or world objects. Yeah, you know what? That's what we're gonna do. Script world objects. Now let's make sure that renamed everything. Script world objects. Gonna rename this to world objects. I like that better. Which now means anytime we reference, we need to rename this symbol to world objects. Okay. Script world generation. Script world. Yep. It's feeling better. So then we can say world.game.cam target. Okay. World. Okay. That looks fine. What do we have? We're in ship weapons. Ship world objects. Okay. This has a reference to world objects. This is a, yep. That's fine. World objects.world.game.ui.port. We'll probably want a better connection there at some point in the future, but not right now. Okay. And then, okay. Let's go ahead and rename this world objects. Okay. All right. I think that's coming together. I'm also going to rename this create. I need to go in here and save that. All right. Coming together. There's an error somewhere in here. Well, we'll find out when. There it is. World objects.world.game. All right. Let's go back here. And our world generation needs to be renamed to world objects. All right, great. It saved saved the information. So we didn't have to copy and paste that over. All right. So again, coming together, we have, doesn't look like a whole lot has changed, but a lot has been changing under the hood. So flushing out a lot of this stuff. So our game is going to have a reference to our world. It's going to set up our world. Our world then will create. When we set this up, we're going to have our alliances and our world objects set up, and then we're going to have our alliances and our world objects create themselves. So If we go back to here, check this out. This setup creates our pools, our alliances. Setup just simply does that, and when we create them, we're going to create a bunch of those things, and then we'll go ahead and okay. So, if I have a negative view towards you, do you have a negative view towards me? Is that just like the level of our relationship? Or can I then influence actually how those numbers go, right? Like if I think positively about Trasul, but they don't think positively about me, is that possible? Or do we just have a simple idea of different levels of relations? Are relationships equal or unequal is the way to think about this. So I think yes, I think relationships can be unequal. I don't think they can be like majorly unequal. I think they probably have to be some amount of like an awareness of them. They don't like us. I think we probably actually want just so the very first okay, I create a bunch of states. So let's just do this right now and see what happens when we generate this. Oop. Oh. We need a reference to our world. And our world actually needs reference to the world object and the alliances. So I think it's time for me to do that. Move down. And then actually wonder objects is cannonballs. Okay. Should our FX be on relation to the world? I think that's fine. But I think I am gonna put it there. Our world is gonna be there. Okay. Let's try. Oh, crap. Didn't drag it. I dragged it during runtime. Oh. We can actually actually set that. Where is this? Text and layers. No. I think it's actually project settings, preferences, colors, play mode tint. This I learned from one of my students. I had never thought to do this, but it's a good idea. Although I don't want it that much colored. I think I'd rather have it a little darker and not actually changing the color. So, okay. So, still something not there. World setup, this. Setup. Oh, did I forget to actually assign that during? Yep. All right. Okay. So now if we select our world, we have our alliances, and oh, we didn't. We're gonna make 4 to 8 states. Fell, fast, pro, yeva. All right. So this is gonna be, so its relationship with fell. And its relationship with itself should probably be 0. So let's go ahead and we can at least do that. Send it I, which is going to be its own int ID. If I is equal to ID, then relations of I is equal to 0. Else it's a random value. Okay. All right. Fastfell, protra, trong, yeva. All right, ungfas fel yeva. So this has a lot of very negative relationships. So then I think we do want to then pass it the relationships already, already established relations. If I is less than ID, relations of I is equal to already established I. Else random. So that way we can hand it create okay, we're gonna if I equals 0, else states I minus 1 dot relations. Okay. Either generate random yeah. So what we're doing here is we're saying in first state there are no set relations. So in this case we're just gonna send it a null. Can we send a null as for an array, an int array? Right now it looks like we can, so let's find out. Okay. All right, let's try this again. Okay. So our first island has a neutral reaction towards itself, has bad. So the second one should have a negative 2 relation. Ooh. So it's just slowly expanding towards 0. All right. If I is less than ID, then we're gonna send it no, we're gonna send it RID of the already established the relationships. Oh crap. We need to send it we need to send it an array of all of the established relationship states. I feel like we should just do all of this after we actually create this thing. Yeah, I think we're going to do all of that afterwards. So we're just going to create all of our island states. All right. For integer j is equal to 0, j is less than states dot length j plus plus. And we're gonna get rid of all this stuff. So we are not using any of that now. Just simply going to send it that information. Send it the state's length. And that. All right. Yep. So creating all our states, and then separately we are going to actually create all of their relationships. So we're going to go through each of our states and give it a random view on this one. So we're in state 0 if j is equal. So the first thing. States j is equal dot relations then we need to do the for int ijk equals 0. Other states equals 0. Other states is less than states dot length other states plus plus. So in this first example, we're going to say if j is equal to other states, then states j dot relations other states equal to 0, else we are going to assign our view towards it and their view towards us. Int starting relationship equals a random number dot range -5 to 5, and then is equal to starting relationship, and similarly starting state's other state. I'm going to go ahead and other state states of j per state. Other, I'm gonna shorten this. Current. Okay. Yep. So states current. Other. And then this way, now we're going to define if current is equal to other, then we just give it current relationships with itself is 0. So, all right, I think this makes sense. That could be a little confusing. I bet that is quite confusing, actually. But all right, let's see how this works. Or each state. Each view of each other state. The problem is it doesn't need to be defined more than once. Because it's going to go... The thing that's wasteful here is... if it's already been defined, it doesn't need to... doesn't need to be defined again, right? Like, I've defined my relationship with all the other states. So we're like crossing through this entire array. But that's fine. You know what? Let's see if it does the thing that I want it to do. And then we can decide whether we need to do it again. All right. So, Fasul, they have a 2 and 0. This has a -1 view of the third thing. And this one has a -1 view of the other one. This has a negative, it has a 4 view of that. And this has a 4 view of that. Element 3 has it has a -1 view of element 0 has a -1 view of element 3, and element 3 has a -1 view of 0. All right. Cool. Do we like numbers like that? You know what? I don't want to use int. I want to use float. It's going to be float. And this is going to be a -1 to 1. So, say, random, unity random -1 to 1. I think I just have to Yeah, I think I just have to say -1F to 1F. Fleet. Alright, let's try and open this up now. Alright. Do we like that? Do we like that? I don't know. Well, that's what we're gonna have for now. Filmo, Promol. Here are all of our island states. Solfel, Molpro, Ungpro, Pro. Cool. Molpro and Promol. So, okay. Now let's go ahead and we're gonna do some little sailing. Okay. So that is slowly taking shape. Where are we going?
Yeah, well, none of the rest of us noticed either, so it really was not that big of a deal at the end of the day.
I have no idea where we are. We might have... Did we already cross out of the world? There's a ship. Alright. There's a port as well. Okay. So now we can see our port. We can see our supplies. We can see our construction weapons. We can buy some construction. Maybe some... Oh, they don't have any weapons. Okay. Yeah, let's... Okay. Alright. Alright, it's coming along. Alright, what do we want to spend our last few minutes working on? I think... Let's look at our little thing. So we haven't done this. We have... we want to give our ports some names. I'm gonna public static class names, basic names, and I might actually just pull that out of here. For the fun of it, and say, put that into basic names here, public static string state names, public static string port names, and port identifiers. Sticky. Treacherous. Okay. Port names. Tall. Rocky. Port. Refuge. Sticky. Hidden. Hidden, treacherous, tall, rocky. Fell. Towering. Calm. Port, refuge. Town. Jungly. No. Actually, a better one. Overgrown. Shelter. Tall shelter. Sure. Port, refuge, town, shelter. Yeah, that's good. Go with that for now. State names, port identifiers. Identifiers, names. And state names. So we can say basic names at state names. And that. And that. Almost. Oh, all right. So, public static. Nope, that's not what I said. Static string get state name. We're just gonna add it over and get rid of this. Get rid of that. That. That, and get rid of that. All right. And get port name. Port name. Going to be port identifiers and port names. All right. Get port name, get state name. Create port name, create state name. here. Let's say basic names dot create state name. And then we'll go ahead to our ports. And we're going to give our port a name. So when we create this port, that's actually going to be, I think the first thing I'm going to do is actually have public int port identifier, port ID, port name constructor. Let's not worry about that right now. Public string name. Okay. Name is equal to basic names dot create port name. All right. So if we run this now, we select all of our ports, we should start to see sticky shelter, rocky refuge, tall refuge, rocky port, overgrown town, fell town, tall refuge, rocky shelter. Yeah. And I'm going to go ahead and, before we call it, this actually needs a space, because otherwise there's no space between these names. All right. I think we're going to call it there. It was a lot of just working in the code. It's not necessarily pretty, but, you know, I guess one of the things that I'm not trying to do here is necessarily make every day being about, you know, how pretty it all is. But I think we are starting to generate a more interesting world. We have the beginning of this idea of alliances. We have this additional idea of our ports having resources, buildings, and storage belonging to an island state. I think next time we might work a little bit more on the AI, and we might work a little bit more on what states different objects belong to. So some sort of kind of ownership. That's all. Talk to you on Friday. Take care.